So let's get going. All right. Minutes of the August 8th meeting. Do we have any corrections to the minutes? The only thing I had noticed was at the very end, Kirsten's last name missing its first E.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is correct.
Yay, minor spelling. Anything big?
I'll fix that.
All right, hearing no other corrections or amendments to the minutes, they'll stand with that amendment. Next set of minutes, the subcommittee minutes.
Yeah, I figured the committee wasn't likely to meet again, so that's why I brought it here for.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, maybe they'll meet again, but either way, it doesn't hurt to get the minutes approved.
But we don't know where. We don't know when.
Yeah, well,
I can't help myself. Sorry.
and you weren't there, so
No.
Does any member who was there have any objection to the minutes? Maybe you could give Tad that guidance.
I don't have any objections. This is Kirsten.
There isn't much to object to. It looks fine to me. This
Good
is
to me
Lisa.
too.
All right. Sounds like those minutes also stand as read. So, first item, policy development for on-street accessible parking. Mark?
Yeah, so this is before you as a referral from the city engineer, specifically the Public Works Committee. Referred this to a few committees, including this one and Plan Commission, maybe another one too. I do have an update for you since my staff comments went out on Tuesday. At the direction of the city administrator, the city engineer is going to, in the next few weeks, designate and sign probably about 4 on-street parking spaces that are parallel spaces. I will show you where those are to be. We had a meeting yesterday to discuss this. What can we do as a short term? The policy that's in your packet, or the guidance that he prepared for the packet, is intended to address accessible spaces that would require some modifications, physical modifications in the street, whereas the on-street parallel spaces could be done with just placing a sign and updating our ordinances to indicate that those are accessible spaces. So we had a meeting yesterday with the city engineer, myself, the city administrator, and Abby Attune, and identified several locations, including on Elmwood, eastbound Elmwood, at in front of the One Community Bank sign here, or location, and also directly across the street, across Aurora Street, in front of this spot right here in front of Stonehorse Green. And the reason we picked those 2 spaces is because they are close to existing ramps, which is a requirement if you have on-street parking spaces of this sort. So the disadvantage with this space, it has a grassy terrace, but if a driver is getting out of their vehicle, they can get to the ramp very quickly. Obviously, it's not a desirable location, and it'd be better to get out the side. So maybe what we'll do in the future then is establish this as a have a hard surface here, concrete surface. But these 2 are easy to implement, especially this one. We've also looked at a couple other locations, and I don't want to get into the weeds with all the design standards, but essentially you need a 26-foot area to for allow vehicle navigation. And so we are looking at a spot also near on Elmwood or Parmenter at this corner, whether it's here, which would be my hope that it could be there, but the distance here is it's not quite 26 feet if you factor in the yellow curb. So Sean's researching whether that's feasible. Otherwise it would go here. And we're looking at another space potentially on the south leg of Parmenter, south of Hubbard. And again, these are meant to be immediate short-term low cost, very low cost, because it's basically just a sign and adopting an ordinance. But the policy, the reason this is before you is because there was a desire to have guidance in terms of how to prioritize the if you have any comments on the staff recommendations for prioritization of future improvements that involve in-street modifications. I guess that's the best I can give as an overview. Plan Commission also has weighed on this, and that is in your packet.
Lisa.
Thanks. Mark, I'm thrilled to see that some very short-term measures can be enacted. That's been I think, an obstacle for a lot of the safety-related changes that I get requests from constituents for that involve public works. It's always got to have a study, and the study takes a long time, and then you forget what the issue was in the first place. Anyway, with that said, can we go back to the map? I'm wondering why
The air photo, you mean?
yeah, why the third spot that you mentioned on Elmwood right there, why that one? Because it seems like it would be better to put one closer to the senior center.
Well, the senior center has
No, it can be on Elmwood, but I'm just wondering, if you look at the other two spots, there are a lot of businesses on the west side. There are a lot of businesses or locations there, but there isn't a whole lot on Elmwood that wouldn't involve either crossing the street or going quite a distance. Do you see what I mean? I mean, there's the bistro.
well, but I mean, there's no accessible parking spaces anywhere, other than on private property. And unfortunately, this is signed for not at the bank. This is BMO Harris Bank. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, that is signed for private use only. It's not supposed to be used by the public, even though I think it does get used. I wish they would remove their sign and allow parking there after hours. But so what we're looking at is this spot where there's a car parked here. Let me just get into the intersection. So we're looking at this spot here,
yep,
which is by Sofra, which is a popular establishment for an older crowd generally. The senior center is, of course, just past it, and the senior center has access from the parking lot. Now, whether this access is open from during the day, that I don't know. Maybe
that is open.
it is open.
Mhm.
So, but there are accessible spaces immediately adjoining the senior center here. So
Yeah.
that's why we felt it wasn't important to have on-street parking, accessible parking right here. The disadvantage of having these on street is, of course, it takes away parking from people who don't need an accessible space. But it's only one space, and it's important to provide spaces in proximity to businesses for people who do have accessibility needs.
And I guess that's what I'm getting at. I don't think this is providing a space that is with proximity to any businesses except Sofra. And
Well,
that's why I
Regal,
was just, right, but they have to cross the street. Again, I was just wondering why that particular spot was chosen instead of something that would be a little closer to more establishments. That's all.
we also looked at, like, I recommended this spot initially when we just were doing this. We literally were looking at the same street view images before I went out in the field and was looking around. We actually just poured a concrete ramp here to serve the dumpster. And ironically, it's a ramp that has a dome, a truncated dome. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd to have that here. And it's specifically so the dumpster can be wheeled out. So I thought, well, let's just make use of that and have that be since there's one here, let's have this parking space be accessible. The problem with it is, again, it has to be a 26-foot long zone, and that would wipe out two of their tables. And so we felt that was a bit, at least I'll speak for myself. I feel that that's a bit impactful on a business that relies on the street that has a sidewalk cafe permit to take out those three spaces. So then, if we put it down here, it's got to have a ramp, then we'd have to put a ramp in. It has to be proximate to a ramp. That's the rule. If you provide it, you're not obligated to provide on-street parking like this, but if you do, it has to meet design standards, and those design standards include proximate to a curb ramp. So that took us to this corner to try and avoid the impact to the business. It took us here because there's the ramp here, but because this distance is less than 26 feet, Sean is assessing whether it's better just to have it around the corner. So I hope that makes sense.
Thanks. I hope it can be put somewhere else. And I know there are parking spaces, accessible spaces in the senior center, but I can also tell you as somebody who's at the senior center every Friday playing pinochle, it has a lot of people who need accessible parking. And they always or often fill up. So I would just put in a plug for, even if it means having to build a ramp, if it can be located near the, or, cutting it out to put in the ramp. If it can be located closer to the senior center, I think that would be good.
What about people who need to or want to visit, say, the Regal Find, or, which has no steps? Admittedly, a couple of these businesses have steps. That's, I think.
Yep, if it goes around the corner, that's fine too. It's just that spot on the southeast corner of Elmwood and Parmenter just seemed like it was maybe not as accessible to businesses as we're
Okay.
shooting for. But I don't want to get bogged down in this.
Kirsten.
I, not too much to add, but Sofra, every time I do bike by Sofra, I am seeing people who with limited ability trying to cross the street, like they're parking on the bank side and crossing over to Sofra.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I bike by there almost daily, and it's a common sight.
So, I mean, one thought too is we could, the street is public domain. They do have a sidewalk cafe permit, which gives them some right, obviously the right to use the street, and then to remove some of their sidewalk cafe area. Obviously that creates some potential issues there. So we can revisit that. I can pass along this feedback and your concerns, Alder Hanairo. I'd be happy to do that. Our goal, the objective here was to try and have the spaces be scattered in, have one per block, if you will, to try and meet needs of businesses that don't have off-street parking at all. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish. Middleton Center technically has accessible parking within their building. Within, there's spaces within the, if you drive in here off of Parmenter Street and drive through here, there are actually accessible spaces in there, which very few people know exist. So we felt it was still important to have some on-street spaces that are visible to the public, especially when they come in from the north on Parmenter, which is a common way to get to our business community. So, but this is good feedback. I appreciate the concerns. The specific area that we are wrestling with is how to address, there's a need for 2 accessible spaces on what we call the horseshoe, Hubbard Avenue to Aurora. And so there is going to be a need to convert 2 of these spaces, including these parallel spaces, to accessible spaces. So we likely will have to either choose something in this bay here or over here, or one in each, to comply with requirements for that are now in place, the federal guidelines that are in place. Same with down here at Staybridge Suites up here and the Valencia, there's no accessible parking spaces here. And so that's another thing that another area that we need to look at. So I don't really know how to help you, what other guidance I can provide for to help you provide feedback. Because now that we're prioritizing the immediate installation or establishment of accessible spaces on street that are parallel spaces. The other work that has to happen in terms of modifications, that's where Sean still would like, and the Public Works Committee would still like some guidance.
Sorry, prioritizing areas that require modification?
Yeah, so this is the policy that Public Works Committee is proposing, and that what they want
Okay.
feedback on. This is what Sean wrote as a draft. And basically what he wants to know is this prioritization that he's outlined, if this is supported by the committees to which this was referred. That's as best as I think I can summarize it at this point. Prioritize the creation of on-street accessible parking spaces, followed by existing marks sign on-street parallel spaces. So actually, yeah, this is a good way to say this. So we are actually doing this now where we don't have to make modifications. So the issue is where you have a median, I'm sorry, a terrace where there's, let's go back here. So let's take this as an example. If this were to be an accessible space, if this distance here, if you can see where I'm drawing from the face of the curb to the edge of the right of way, if that's more than 14 feet, then you are obligated to establish a 5-foot paved area here that's flush with the pavement. In other words, wiping out the terrace, and create a ramp within that area to have a properly designed accessible space. That's one reason why we wouldn't want to do that here, because again, there's a sidewalk cafe, but this may also not be 14 feet. Sean is in the process of assessing that. He thinks it's very close to 14 feet. I haven't actually gone out to measure it myself, but so my thought on that is we need to establish the rule is where you provide marked parking spaces and signed parking spaces, you are obligated to put in accessible parking, and because it's more than 25 spaces that are here, you're obligated to put in 2. So where we put those, I believe we should put them in a way that does not require this expensive redesign of the street, which affects drainage and the use of the terrace. So I think it's better to put them where we have the angled spaces, but that means then you have to establish for example, if it were to be this space here, you then have to establish a ramp within the street, within the curb, to get them onto the sidewalk, to get the wheelchair users onto the sidewalk. So there's significant redesign that has to happen. I shouldn't say significant, but it's, there's definitely, there's an inlet here too. So that's why this has a cost associated with it, and why we're picking the low-hanging fruit first by establishing the parallel spaces. I didn't mean to get this so detailed, but that's what this 14-foot reference is. And so he just wants to know if the policy that he has drafted is, if that makes sense, and if there's any other views on prioritization.
Lisa.
I've talked a lot.
I like the prioritization. I would suggest for an actual policy, if one needs to come before council, those 3 things that are buried in that paragraph under action be pulled out into a numbered list so that it's easy to see them. And I would also want to see, as chair of finance and personnel, I would want to see an estimate of like a timeline showing when do we plan to do the first group? When do we plan to do the second? When do we plan to do the third? And a budget request to start doing it. Because if we're going to adopt a policy and if we're obligated to provide this parking, we need to do it. And so if that can even be put in the budget request for this year, that would be fantastic.
Good feedback.
Todd.
Yeah, just to follow up on Alder Henairo's comments too. If it goes to council, I think there's going to want to be a little bit more discussion about the word prioritize. So are we going to prioritize this initiative over every other initiative that the city is currently working on? So, yeah, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that, there might want to be a more detailed discussion about if we're going to do this, what are the costs, as Alder Nairo mentioned, and what would be a cost benefit kind of analysis as well, because I think that'll be important for city staff. If council is going to approve it, is this the number one priority they're working on? Because that's what prioritize means. So, yeah, just a comment.
Okay. Well, that's adequate for me as far as I'm concerned. If the two council members with that guidance, if anybody has any other views, I would leave it at that otherwise.
All right. Item number 2 is me. All right, so the development of the Complete Streets Guide. We discussed this 2 months ago. We began talking about it. And then I believe the action at that point had been nobody was really available to work on it with me. So I was doing what I could until last month. I hadn't been able to do as much as I would have liked, so we deferred it to this month. At this point, I've been doing more research, referencing the Madison guide. So right now I'm going to be a little bit informational. The Madison guide is very long, and it's not particularly actually designed for the people doing the building, which was the idea of the guide I had in mind. In fact, it seems more aimed at council members and the public. I do think we will need such a document, so it might be okay to call that the guide. And I think we'll need such a document because what we will definitely need to, as part of this work, we will definitely need to update some of the actual guiding documents. For example, the typical street sections found on the city website. Also, the standard details drawings. Section 600 is standard details of streets. It's basically just theoretical streets to serve as guides. So we'll need to update those. And updating those likely means hiring an engineer. So that will be a budget question down the road. So we will definitely need this guide where one of the audiences is the council in order to make the case for doing this work. And then secondarily, an audience of the public, so that when they're saying, what is happening to my street? Why is it so weird? They can reference this and have at least an idea of why we're doing what we're doing. I know, Mark, I know there's a document on the website detailing lane widths for streets based on their hierarchical classification. I couldn't find it the most recent time I was searching, so we'll need to find that. Um,
if I may, I don't
yes,
interrupt you if you have a flow going.
please
here.
interrupt. I'm not flowing at all.
Well, I wanted to provide a resource for you. So this is an example, I think, Tad, of what you're describing, where the city has established
Yes,
policies that, for example, this is in our traffic control specification. Contractor shall not in any manner obstruct roads, sidewalks, crossings, etc. So during construction, what happened, we need to make sure that we keep sidewalks open on one side of the street at least. When there's when we do sidewalk replacements, we shouldn't be closing both sides at the same time. And unfortunately, that happened last month with Donna Drive. And I actually pointed it out and brought it to my colleagues' attention. I took this picture yesterday, and this is still hanging out there, even though it's been a couple weeks since the sidewalk squares were poured, and we still have these. Well, I'll refer to it as a hazard, a tripping hazard. At least the square is here, but these were pretty inadequately when this was ripped out a few weeks ago. There was simply a stake on each side diagonally, like one here with the yellow tape connecting the two, and there was no advance notice of the road of the sidewalk being closed. I was very concerned about that from a safety standpoint, especially anyone at night. But then aside from that, it was happening on both sides of the street. And so that should not happen ever again. And
Spring Hill Drive had issues as well.
yeah, and I've heard that it was an issue in Fox Ridge as well. So we had a contractor this year, apparently our sidewalk contractor, that did not get the memo, so to speak, or at least is not adhering to it. And so I think, Tad, what you're getting at is we need to make sure that we have these policies not only established, but that we have teeth to enforce them.
yes, we do need that too.
Yeah, and I think that's the type of thing that you're getting at here with the complete streets policy, how we implement it and put some teeth to it.
Well,
As an example.
yeah, that isn't where is that general requirements?
So I'm looking
126 traffic.
Yeah, so I'm looking
Okay,
for
so that's in the municipal code itself. No.
No, section 126. I'm going to the Public Works page. I'm not completely familiar with their website. But under engineering here, I'll show you. So under engineering, there's here's traffic.
Okay.
And there's some resources here that possibly some of this is where we could do some work or at least to review to make sure that
Yes,
that our guidelines are in place. But the section 126 or whatever it was, I'm not sure if what that is a reference to at this point. So oh, here we go. Ordinance standard specifications. So maybe there are things in here that one could find. I can consult with Sean to see what that 126 reference to is.
Yeah.
Standard specifications would probably be the I don't know what that
so
is.
standard specifications. Oh,
Let me just see
yeah. So section 600 is the street construction side. Anyway,
Yeah.
yes, so that's one thing I was doing. I was collecting the various documents that we would need to update and work on that are the actual, because it's one thing to have a guide where we say you should do this, but if that's not in the actual city codes, that's not going to be that useful. We need to get it in the city code.
Right.
Lisa.
Thanks. I agree we should try to get things into the city code so that they will actually have teeth. But I also think, and Carrie, you can chime in on this because you are on Public Works, unless it is something that is standard within the industry and in like I don't know the exact term, but the code, not our code, but the code, there will be pushback from Public Works because it's not standard. And so I kind of see this guidance, like just the other day, we were talking about the need for sustainable building guidelines. And the sustainability committee wants to have recommendations, just like something they can hand out to developers who call the city and say, hey, we know you can't require these things of us, but we really want to be sustainable. So what do you recommend for new developments? And so they're going to prepare those next year as part of the budget. And I see this as an opportunity or as a need for someone to sit down and say, here's how we've been building roads. Here's how we need to start building roads because we have this complete streets policy. And one of the examples is a raised crosswalk. Another might be using green paint. Every time these things come up, Public Works pushes back. Not just Public Works Department, but the Public Works Committee. There was pushback. In fact, I know the Parmenter Street redesign, one of the suggestions from this committee, I believe, was to consider green paint for bike lanes and crosswalks. And, the response from the contractor was, well, we don't recommend doing that because it's more expensive and maintenance and all that. And it's then Public Works Committee voted, to take that out. Same thing with the raised crosswalk that I think it was on the Lake Street redesign. They took that out. And I was not on the committee when both of those things happened. So I think we need to have something that council can bless and have that available to say, to underscore the reason the complete streets policy was adopted is because we don't want to build streets the way we've always built them. There's no sense in having the policy if we're not going to implement it and continue to do things the way we've always done them.
Yes, and
My 2 cents.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's why I am sticking with a guide as kind of an explainer to council and the public so that as we push for these things, we can have some heft. But one of my design directions is reference the NACTO, the North American City Transportation Officials Street Design Guide, a lot, so that my intention is to kind of sum up NACTO and federal highway guidance. To an extent, I see us mostly as just being a bit behind because of staffing issues. So I'd like to catch up with that. Kirsten.
Lisa, would it also help if we included other Midwestern cities that are using these practices, just to help kind of sell it to everybody else, like Madison, Minneapolis, who are using these practices?
Oh, definitely. And if those cities have any, why would they? But I was going to say, if they have any lessons learned or data to share, I think that would be really, cost benefit analysis. Well, it costs more to have the green paint, but it's enhancing safety, and here are the metrics to show that. And I think that would be really useful.
I have a perfect person from Madison Bikes that I'm sure would be able to share data. He's a big data person, and it's Harold. So maybe we could get him in a meeting, or Tad, maybe he would probably be willing to work with you on this because this is his jam with Madison Bikes. So Tad, I can send you his contact information.
That would be great.
Great.
Carrie.
I was just gonna say that I agree with you, Lisa, that I think every time there's like some kind of traffic calming issue raised, or pedestrian bicycle transit like safety, or just like making it, we have to revisit everything all over again every single time too. But like, oh, here's the reasons why these are beneficial. So some kind of guidance of just like a go-to of like, okay, here's some strategies, right, that we should be looking at. So I think it's like we have to have the discussion every single time, and I think every situation is unique, and so I think that's why sometimes some decisions are made differently. But just to have some kind of standard guidance that we can go to a work committee would be really helpful.
Harry, just FYI, your mic, we're having a little bit of hard time, at least I'm having a little bit of hard time hearing your mic, so I don't know if there's something in front of it or just
Weird.
wanted to give you that feedback.
Okay.
It-
Did everybody, is everyone having a hard time hearing me?
No? Okay. It's
You're
just
a
not as
little,
clear.
you're a little soft, but I just
Okay.
listened closely.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had. I don't know if there's any follow-up questions.
Does anybody else have any input today? If not, if it's okay, I'm just gonna keep plugging away and start. My thought is that once I've finished my research, I will start making example text, basically example text sections, and I guess through Mark, give everybody the chance to review them and provide feedback. Does that sound good? All right.
I'll go back
Item
to the,
number 3, week without driving preparations.
Okay, is that me or is that you, Mark?
I was gonna see if you wanted to lead that, and it just occurred to me that I could have and should have put the resolution in the packet. I'm sorry that I didn't do that.
Oh, that's
And
okay.
I don't have the final version at my fingertips because that got edited, and I don't know that I ever saved that.
I think it's on the website, and if not, I can provide a link to you.
Well, and that's where I was quickly, it just occurred to me right a moment ago that I should get that. So do you know where it is on our website?
Well, I don't know where it is on our website, but I know if you go to the dccva.org website, it is maybe under helpful links
Yeah.
or news. It might be news. Or resources. It's somewhere on there because I saw they had put it up.
Oh,
But anyway,
specifically ours, you mean?
yeah, because
Okay.
I passed, it might have been under meetings or leadership or something. I don't know. I'll send you the link later, but I can give you a quick update. Oh, there it is right at the top. They put our resolution up there.
Good.
So it's the week of September 30th through October 6th. I signed up at the Week Without Driving website and I encourage others to do so as well. It did not, I still haven't gotten any, confirmation. Like usually when you sign up on a web form, you start getting pelted with all kinds of emails, reminders, whatever. I haven't gotten anything yet. And I mentioned that to my colleague, Alder Bill Jetzer from Fitchburg, and he said same thing. He signed up through a different site and still has not gotten anything. But anyhow, the update more locally is that the Dane County board will be considering a resolution. CARPC will vote on a resolution on the 12th. The MPO passed a resolution on the 9th. Madison is going to be considering a resolution drafted by Alder Vitiver. Sun Prairie will have a proclamation. I think that's going to the MPO on the 17th. I don't know if Sun Prairie itself will do anything. And Verona is either doing a resolution or a proclamation, and Fitchburg will have one on the 24th. So there are obviously a lot of our peer communities are getting involved in this. The Bike Federation put a call out to people to ask them to write to their legislators and encourage them to participate and elevate this. And I'm told the MPO is preparing a survey and wants to work with specific people, whether it's elected officials or city staff or regular residents to capture their experiences traveling without a car during the week without driving. And you'll see that the resolution that we passed in Middleton, I haven't looked at these others yet, but the one that passed in Middleton, if you scroll down to the end, it encouraged, because some of the feedback I got from fellow alder people in different communities was, well, I support the idea, but in my area, it would be really tough to get around without a car. And I would feel hypocritical doing it, but, forwarding this when I don't plan to do it myself. And because this is the first year we're trying this, I didn't talk to them about, like, part of the reason to do it is to see the difficulty firsthand. It's supposed to be a learning experience, to see the world from the point of view of somebody who does not have access to a car or chooses not to drive a car. And so that's why in our resolution, we asked people to try to take even just one of their trips that they would normally take by car, to do it without the car. So that is the pitch I gave to my constituents through my e-news. And I really hope people will sign up. And I would encourage members of Ped Bike and Transit to contact your older people and ask them to sign up as well. Again, emphasizing even just the one trip that you normally would take by a car, it can be really eye-opening to see how neighbors in our own city manage when they don't have access to their own car. And I'm hoping, Mark, maybe you can shed some light on this. I'm hoping that our communications director is going to be putting together a press release to go to the Times Tribune, be on the website, that kind of thing. I will mention it at the next council meeting. And again, I'll encourage my colleagues to share information with their residents, their constituents. And I
Signing
plan
up right now.
I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna try to do
Hmm.
the entire week without a car.
And I'm showing people, this is the website that you're talking about, Alder Nairo.
You can do it at America Walks. You can also go to, I think it's all going to the same place because that looks like the same form. But I did it through, I actually Googled week without driving.
This is the result when you do that.
Yep,
Your form
that's
has
the
been
result I
submitted.
got too.
And I serve on the Masson Area Transportation, or the Greater Masson Metropolitan Planning Organization, representing small cities and villages, and we adopted a resolution last night, as Alder Nairo noted. Oops, that's not this one, it's here. So, and as part of that, we had a discussion about challenging our colleagues on the board to participate in this as fully as possible.
Yep. And this is the first year that we're coordinating on doing this locally. And so I always look at the first time doing something as mainly a learning experience. And one of the things I'm learning is start earlier and really, find ways to make it appealing and really reach people. So I'm gathering lessons learned.
Kirsten.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we can hype it up a little bit, like for the Instagram page for the city of Middleton, do hashtag and have people take pictures and hashtag, a week without driving, showing where they're going. People like to do that kind of stuff and it gets people excited. And then I'd brought up last time as well, I guess it was 2 months ago, the round trips. Because right now they're doing a challenge, smart trips for the month of September, and people like to have a place where they can go in and log it. Some people do, some people don't, but to have a little challenge, I wonder if we could have a little City of Middleton challenge on the round trips website, and maybe have a couple prizes to local businesses. I'm sure that places like Long Table would donate. It might be too late this year, but for sure, just having people do hashtag so that more people know about it.
Is this what you mean, Kirsten?
Yep. So the smart trip challenge, if you go down, scroll down, smart trip challenge is going on now, which I participate in, and you just sign up and log it. And they even do a challenge to get people signed up. The first 25 people who sign up get a gift card to Ian's Pizza. and then they do weekly drawings. So we could just do a 1 week drawing and get local businesses to donate maybe a gift card or something like that. Like Wheel and Sprocket, our local bike shop, you know. Just wondering if we could do something like that for the city of Middleton. And it's also for walking, biking, and bus transit and carpooling. So that's what's really cool, is it involves all of that. And Lisa, I love the fact that you said just one trip, because oftentimes that's where it starts. I really like emphasizing you don't have to do it for the week, just one day, one trip.
So there's 85 participants so far, which is disappointing. It's not more, but I'm not one of them either. So I need to,
Their spring one
at
was
that.
much better known.
You know who that is.
Their
Or at
spring
least-
one was much better known and had a lot more. This one kind of came on fast. There wasn't a whole lot of headway or whatever, but it shows it can start here and we could do it every year, right? Even if we get 10 people to sign up, that's where it starts. And Mark, you said you know Zia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a feeling that my coworker is on this list as well. Although I don't know that for a fact, but yes. Good. Well, let's see if we can get some more names on there from our committee or from this committee. I'll put that in the minutes. I'll put the link in the minutes and I'll get the minutes done fast.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow up too, I think there was an important concept that Alder Hanairo mentioned, is that, you know, this isn't just a yearly event, you know, where we're highlighting something. It's a learning event, and we want feedback and we want to get people's comments. And so it's not necessarily just to do it, it's to better understand the barricades and some of the issues with doing it. And so, and we want to hear that, you know, so we would, in my opinion, I think I would love to hear, you know, someone rode their bike to the grocery store and they found out when they got halfway to the grocery store, the bike trail ended. There's no more bike trail. So I had to go on a dangerous route. And so, you know, people I think would be more aware of some of the obstacles to this, and maybe they'd become more involved. Or, you know, I could also see people saying, well, you know, I live too far from town. I wouldn't be able to get groceries. We want to hear that too. You know, so there's not public transit in certain areas. And so, you know, I don't know if there's a way to log comments or things like that, but it's just a thought, you know, some of that feedback and some of the more active involvement and understanding of some of the issues we have with public transportation and pedestrian and bike trails and things like that might be helpful as well, just to expand on this initiative.
And we could resend out the survey after it, right? I mean, the survey
Yeah.
that we designed would be perfect after this.
So I'll put some of these resources in the minutes, the round trip and the resolution.
And Mark, can you
Yeah.
also coordinate with Brent on
Yeah.
some publicity for this? I'm wondering if we could even use our, it's maybe not the most appropriate place for it, but our billboard that people see when they're driving their cars on the Beltline. You know, that might be a good week to publicize the hashtag Week Without Driving.
Oh, on a couple of levels. I wish that's kind of humorous that you said that, but let's have it be visible to a place where you can't be a pedestrian. But that's the
Yes.
point, right? We're trying to get people to choose a different mode of transportation. So that's a
Well,
good suggestion.
I have sidewalk chalk and I'm literally on the corner of Branch and Century, so
There you go.
so do we have any other input discussion for now, or are we done for now?
I think we're done for now, and
Okay.
maybe in November, it would be a good time, or maybe December at our meeting to
Yeah,
debrief on the experience and start thinking ahead to 2025. Which
Yep.
reminds me that when we get to the active transportation, or no, when we get to the work plan, we should add that as a 2025 item.
I missed that, so I'm sorry. Add what to the work
I'll
plan?
bring it up. I'll
Oh,
bring it
okay.
up when we get to the
Okay.
work plan.
Okay,
all right. Staff updates, lunch and learn.
yeah, I'll turn this over to Kirsten since
Sure.
she's done the legwork here. Thank you.
Yeah, all right, so, I can't believe this all came together, but it did. So we are having G. Gregory come and speak at the courthouse on September 10th at noon. And I wanted to open it up to people who are not just police officers, EMS, firefighters. The more people we can get in there, as far as city staff, the better, or anybody on this committee. The reason it's noon, is because, I was told that that would probably be the best time for the most amount of police officers to make it. So that's why we chose that, but it'll be an hour or less, and it's going to be going over the actual laws. So things like cyclists are allowed to ride two abreast, and talking about those things, and pedestrian laws, the fact that once you put foot in a road and a crosswalk, you have right of way, whether people feel safe with that or not. And G, who goes by they, their, them, is going to make, per my request, kind of a bullet point sheet that everybody can take home with them. Just so that when you are trying to help educate somebody on this, you'll have a law to reference and be able to say it is Wisconsin law that XYZ. And then, let's see here. There was a request from the police department to include educating pedestrians, cyclists, and those with micromobility, on the laws they should follow, which I was a little taken back by, but it was a request, and I said, how about if we discuss how we can approach people if we see somebody, let's say, running a red light or biking in the dark without lights on, instead of coming at them, you're breaking the law, how we can kindly approach them out of concern for their well-being. So that's the way that I asked G to go about it. So it will be included to make the police department happy. Yeah, that's it. And then there will be open question and answer at the end, of course. But we will get that bullet point sheet and we can post it or discuss it at a further meeting.
And Kirsten, thank you so much for your legwork, especially since you've had some other things going on. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy it came now, because this is a perfect kind of thing to enter in to a week without driving. I mean, it's just, and at the start of the school year, I just think it's perfect timing. So I'm happy it happened this fall.
So anybody who's interested, next Tuesday at noon, you're welcome. There's plenty of room in the courtroom for committee members, I'm sure. We're going to invite others. I've already asked our engineering staff to spread the word amongst themselves and to join the first responders at this training.
Have you asked Brian Gadow to encourage city staff to attend?
I asked Sean Stowski, but if you'd like, I can forward that to Brian.
I think that would be good. I'll be there.
Okay. Yeah, I will. If you'd like that to come from Brian, I will do that. Okay. Ready to move on? Ted?
Yep, BRT.
So we are launching, the Masson area is launching BRT on September 22nd. And I just now emailed you the news release that Madison issued. I can't remember if I forwarded it previously, but I'm doing it now if I didn't, so that you have all the information. There's a good information on their website, and I just had it up and now I can't find it. I've got too many browser windows going. Here we go. So it's on, so here's the news release, and with the information on how to use the new features and what the new features are. And so that's a link in your inboxes now. So you can find it there. And I'll put that in the minutes as well. That's all I have for that. Oh, there is also a tour. I don't know who's being invited, and I am reluctant to invite people directly to the tour I think it's next Thursday, a week from today. I think it's geared to Madison officials, but I don't know if there's space constraints or not, so I don't feel like it's my place to extend that invitation. But if anyone is interested, I can forward that to you as well, and I can check with the coordinator to see if there's room for others.
I had noticed there's also BRT station open house next Tuesday, 4 to 7 at the Baldwin Street Station.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so BRT open house Tuesday. Okay.
Kirsten?
Yeah, and I would just encourage people to stay positive when talking about this. There's been so much negative talk, especially if you're on Next Door Neighbor, you'll see it. I removed myself completely from Next Door Neighbor because of this, because it's just nasty and ongoing. But just encourage people. You know, one thing that I talk to people about is, hey, it's new. We're all afraid of change. Like when we changed the numbers to letters and stuff. Give it time, give it a year, because we're going to have to work out quirks in this. But let's not be hasty to judge. Let's give this a shot and encourage people to ride it the first week to see how it works versus jumping to conclusions and saying it's going to be dangerous. The more people that can talk positively about this, I think the better right now, because Madison Metro is getting hammered.
And if you want some no, that's not the right term. If you want some
Fodder.
some encouragement source, you could definitely just check out the Wikipedia article and pull up the many facts about the long history of BRT systems and how all the techniques we are using are well understood and deployed many other places. Lisa.
Your point is well taken, Kirsten. I'm still on Nextdoor, but I never do anything other than lurk to see what people are talking about. I'm wondering well, I think it would be great for the committee to have a field trip and test this out. But I'm also thinking this would be like, I'm reluctant to really promote the opening of the BRT as part of the week without driving, because we know there are probably going to, there are going to be some growing pains early on. But eventually, maybe later this year sometime before it gets too freezing cold, could we have an event like, so you want to ride the bus? Because honestly, I think that fear of the unknown is what keeps people from trying new things. I went to Chicago with family members and we took the bus to go see the Rolling Stones at Soldier Field. And I guarantee if I hadn't been there, they would have driven, because they're just, driving and paying for parking and sitting in traffic is something they're accustomed to, but taking the bus in Chicago is not something they're accustomed to. So I wonder if there's just a way to make it easy for people to have that experience and not feel so uncomfortable navigating it themselves.
I think when it's a little bit freezing cold could actually be really good, because it would be a chance to introduce them to the fact that the new BRT stations have heating lamps, something we have never had before. I'm super excited about it.
We could maybe have a game where we, or a challenge where we encourage the public to find certain art, which bus stop has this art installation. I mean, there are some fun ways that you can really make this more accessible to the public.
I wonder if we could get like discounted bus pass or like a handful of free bus passes too, that people could pick up at a local business in town or at City Hall. Because a lot of people are probably okay trying it, but don't want to pay for it, but just, for that first month.
I'll look into that. Round trip, the program for the MPO has those available and hands those out. So I know that there's a source. I with all the new fare structure, everything, it's not. I'm sure that they still have this option to provide you with passes. I don't fully understand how it works, but I have no problem with. I look forward to using it as well. It occurred to me not long ago. I went to an event at Breeze Stevens, and I drove because that's what I'm used to doing. But I realized as I did that, thought, wait a minute, Route F now is a direct route that doesn't just end on campus and at the square. It goes right down East Washington. I could have just boarded that bus and, there's a new way to travel, and I would have been in, maybe a few minutes longer as a commute, but I wouldn't have had to search for a parking space, and I would have had a shorter walk at the end. Not that I mind the walk, I like my steps. So it's just a matter of changing the mindset and how we think about things. And we are transitioning in this Madison area to a big city with more transit options. And yes, there's some growing pains, but having also taken a train recently, the CTA in Chicago a few weeks ago, it was a blast. I enjoyed those experiences, but many people are afraid of change, like fear of the unknown, as was just stated.
All right, so the survey.
Yeah, we have 184 responses as of a few minutes ago to our survey already. So that's I'm excited by that. We had about 90 that came out that happened within a day or two of the city issuing a news release. And thanks to Alder Hanairo for her publicity with her newsletter, that generated another roughly 50 or so, I would say, within a couple days. So this is the summary. I don't think it's, I don't really want to go through it now because the survey is actively underway, but you can see the trend here. 48 responded right when the city issued the news release, and the next day was 41. So that's about 80 or 90. And then here there's a little blip on September 2nd. So I just I'm looking forward to analyzing this tool that this GIS tool does summarize this for us. One of the things that is interesting is, and I really don't want to go through the results, I guess, and have that all be, I just want to collect the data, but what I simply want to do is show you the, here's a word, what's it called, a word cloud, of where people are able to identify the streets and intersections they find particularly challenging. So we are starting to capture that data. So, and here's the text that people are writing. It's anonymous, not linked to the survey responses, but, we are getting specific locations, and in general, from what I've seen, extremely helpful and thoughtful responses. There's not, people are taking this seriously and trying to provide constructive feedback. So I'm very happy with that. I didn't really have a goal in mind for how many responses other than let's get as many as we can. So what we'll do is we will publicize this periodically over the next couple of weeks. The survey runs through the end of the month. And I want to thank the subcommittee members who helped me get this together, and all of you for your initial feedback as well in July. Oh, we have one more response in the meantime. So
Mark,
Yep.
is it possible to keep it open until October 2nd?
Yeah, that's fine.
Because then I can send
Do one
a
more.
reminder
Yeah,
to
that's fine.
people. Yeah.
There's
okay.
no, this isn't a scientific, there's no reason why we can't keep it
Sure.
open.
But we want to be able to get the data, but I'm just thinking there might be another little bump if I can send it out on October 1st.
Yeah, no, I'm happy. That's no problem. Oh, I mean, we're just wanting to get data. We don't need to cut anybody off who wants to help provide information about areas that they consider to be unsafe or inconvenient for pedestrian and bicycle travel. That's my update there. The work plan.
Work plan.
You've asked that this be an ongoing item. It is posted on our Ped Bike Transit Committee webpage now. Lisa, you said you had something you wanted to.
I think since this is for 2025, yes, I think it would be good to, oh, it's only through June of 2025. Well, in that case, I would say add to it, start planning the week without driving. Because that should start before June ends. And then also I would say, I think, just given my experience with planning other things, Bike Week 2025, we should start planning for that much sooner than March of 25. Otherwise, it's a mad scramble and people will be overwhelmed. Oh, and then one other thing, as long as I'm thinking of it, I know I missed the meeting last time because I had COVID and you all talked about the budget, but one of the requests I'm getting from constituents is about the interaction between bikes and pedestrians on the Conservancy trails. And when Kirsten mentioned that the police department wanted to also talk about how pedestrians and bike riders sometimes don't follow the rules of the road. It just reminded me of the conversations I've had. So I would like to suggest that we have on here, in addition to coordinating with the police department, I'd like to coordinate with Conservancy Lands Committee, or maybe the Parks and Recreation and Forestry Commission, on trail etiquette and signage for the Conservancy. I know we've got the signs that say, bikes yield to everybody and walkers yield to people using wheelchairs. I don't think that's a particularly helpful thing to be telling people. I think it would be more helpful to have Marcus talked before about having a speed limit. Now that we have a lot of e-bikes out there, having a speed limit in the Conservancy, making it clear that these are like traffic lanes. So you should stay to the right, and asking bikes to signal for people, but also asking walkers to be mindful of, be situationally aware, basically. If you're walking a dog, try to keep the dog to the right, and, just things like that. So I think we need to coordinate with our colleagues on Conservancy lands about that. And I can try to get this, that's okay, Tad. I just wanted to add, since I think Mark, you already submitted the budget request. This is something I can bring up on the Finance and Personnel Committee when we're talking about the budget.
Okay.
Kirsten.
I agree with Lisa. I think that's a really important thing, because I walk the Conservancy almost daily. And even though I'm a cyclist for commuting, I find that it's getting really dangerous out there. Partly though, because of encroachment. The path is much narrower in some sections than it ever used to be. And so it's even sometimes hard for two walkers to pass each other. So maybe we could also add that to the whole Conservancy discussion. Is upkeep of the path and encroachment issues to make it safe for everyone, as well as the speed limit. I agree with having like a speed limit of 15 miles an hour through there for sure.
I don't think we should get too much into specific issues, but to have this as a standing action item, I agree with that. Sorry, I didn't mean to, you know what I mean? I didn't, since it's not noticed on the agenda, I don't want to start a discussion, a policy discussion on those things.
Yep. I just need to say one more quick thing, Lisa, before I forget. When the meeting, because we won't see each other before the lunch and learn. G said that they will help you plan the Pride Ride next year, if that's still something that you want to do as well.
South Fork Path Bridge.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, Kirsten said she would like to discuss the or have an update on the access issues or the steps that were being taken with the opening of the new bridge over Pleasant View Road. And I can just give you a quick update. Our city administrator has been working with the city engineer, Parks and Rec director, and the golf course manager to address concerns raised by the golf course manager. And there's a bollard now in place at where the path intersects with the golf course drive. So that the intent of the bollard is to discourage vehicles from getting onto the path and crossing the bridge. There is a plan to restrict access to, I guess it's a cell tower. The cell tower is just a big utility area. Anyway, there's an area that is off the path. I can show you quickly. Although obviously you're not going to see the just a second.
And Mark, know that I've been in constant conversation with Carl, who's on the board at Pleasant View, and with John Augsburger, who is the trail steward
Okay.
for the trails.
So this is obviously an old map, but this is roughly where the path comes in, like it did in the past. The bridge is over here now, but here's a cell tower. And so this area is much more open following construction. And so there's going to be a plan to fence this off so that this doesn't become a parking area for safety reasons. So anyway, the point is there's various steps being taken, long-term plan also to try and get a route along the path. I mean, along the drive. And Kirsten, maybe that's what you're mentioning. Okay. That's all I have for that.
Yeah, I just wanted people to be aware of what was going on there.
I don't think, are there still barricades up there, or is there still something in place that indicates that bicyclists are not to travel onto the golf course, or has that been removed?
With everything going on right now in my life, I
You haven't been
haven't
out there,
been
okay.
able to get out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hopefully going to get out there in the next 2 days.
Okay, no problem. That's all I
Right.
have.
Do we have any future agenda items we want to make sure we're thinking about? All right, I'm not hearing anything, so we are done with our agenda for the evening, so we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
evening. Enjoy
Thank
the
you.
weather.
Bye.